Joining me now via Skype, we have Dave Fehling of the Houston Public Media. Thank you so much for joining us. You have been really focusing in and watching this Houston flooding as it progressed. Would you say that this caught people off guard and the city and infrastructure?
We knew there was going to be some heavy rain on Sunday night, but this did happen at the worst possible time. It happened, more or less in the darkness of early morning on Monday morning. And people, they've been through this before in Houston. We had back just on Memorial Day weekend last year, a very similar storm came up where it's not a tropical storm. These are just, regular rain events. It's just the intensity was so tremendous, and it's just kept hitting Houston over and over with so much rain so quickly. And that's why people, unfortunately, get caught out on the roads. The deaths that resulted from this, the 8 deaths, I believe almost every one of those were people in vehicles driving into water that was, many feet deep. And they didn't know it because it was dark. So it did kind of come at the worst possible time.
And we saw that there was $5 billion in damage to property. What would you say is the economic impact for not just the people, but also the city?
Well, it definitely puts a stop on everything, not unlike a blizzard would in any other part of the country. And things are now getting back to normal. Although a lot of the schools up in the northern suburbs that have been hit the hardest by some of the creek flooding, they're still out of school. But schools here in the Houston area back in session. Businesses in this case have recovered, I would say, fairly quickly. Obviously, you've got some businesses that are literally flooded, again, some of these northern parts of the city, but the rest of the city has come back, and we actually had more rain, but so far, nothing like what we had earlier this week, and things are returning to normal. This is not like Allison, which is the big storm we had back in 2001. That did so much damage to our medical center and to our downtown, to our theater district. That didn't happen this time. This is primarily a suburban flood that really hit a lot of homes and residents and apartments the worst.
What do you think we can learn from this, knowing that Houston is a city of bayous and is very low, sea level compared to, 50 feet above sea level? What can we learn from this?
Well, it brings up all the arguments that have been going on here for decades, and that is enough being done to keep people from building and living in places that we know are going to flood? For years, I live in a house that's almost 100 years old. It was built on pier and beam. It's up off the ground several feet. Well, in the next coming decades after the early 1900s, they started building homes here on slabs right on the ground. And a lot of these are in neighborhoods that are known to be in the floodplain. Those homes are heavily damaged with just a few inches of water. So there's a lot of talk right now about where do you allow construction that also can exacerbate things. We've had hundreds of thousands of people move to Houston in just the past decade. So they've built far more roads. They've paved over parking lots, places where the water used to be absorbed. So those things are all, again, being considered. Is enough being done to restrict how and where people live and build, and what does that have as an effect on floods like the ones you're seeing right now?
All right, Dave, thank you so much for joining us, and we appreciate the insight because, once again, it's a growing city, but it also is kind of the infrastructure very dependent on that weather. Thank you so much for joining us.